Certain. Maybe, there were some issues. That's why we have some big days. But yes, we are here. We are going to look at the defensive states. Last time we discussed nation building and the Mofekani. I remember I was always telling you that we had 3 episodes. We had nation building, and then we had the Mofekani, and then we had the defensive states. So speaking, all of these episodes, all events, historical events in South African history, were happening concurrently. They were taking place at the same time. Okay, not as we split them because of the details that we have on each and the respective aspect. We split them when we are discussing them, but they were happening at the same time. They were concurrent. Like I told you that time, as Shaka and the like were building their nations, were establishing the Zulu Kingdom and the Mosesa by being Swahili. What they were causing, basically, the effect of the building of their nations was Mofekani. And Mofekani had many negative impacts, which were disastrous. But the positive one, which was indirect, positive, but not intended. Positive, but not intended. Okay? Not intended was the establishment of what we call the defensive states. Because many things can happen in life which are bad, but of course you get a few good things out of them. And then some of the good things you might get, sometimes they last for a very long period of time to benefit a number of generations to come afterwards. So when we had nation building, basically Mofekane, the positive thing that happened were the defensive states. I don't think that if it wasn't from Mofekane and maybe nation building, people like Mosheshi would have really they had bigger ideas of building their own states. Actually, the defensive states, unlike the states that were built, like the Zulu Kingdom, among others, the objective of building these ones was expansion. They expand. They wanted simply to expand their frontiers, boundaries, and create empires. And that was the objective of nations that were built, like the Zulu and the Mofefa, among others. However, the objective of defensive states, these ones here, we are going to be looking at, the objective was basically, as you see, was to defend their states, not to expand them, but as a people, as a group of people, basically it is like when you oppress people in life, people are not like animals or any other non-living things. People think, and they could always come up with solutions. That's why we happen always to think much more when we are in times of crisis. The brain works very, very hard. At the end of the day, you come up with solutions. There are moments when someone says enough is enough, and then that person draws a line. So whatever happens beyond this line, it means that either he loses life or you lose life, whoever is attacking him. That is the one of the rules of nature. So the defensive states were built on those grounds. There are some people who could not run away. I told you that some ran away because of Mofekane. They ran away, like the Ngoni. We usually refer to them as cowards. They ran from the battlefields. They said, we cannot stand up with the Shaka's expansion and Mofekane. So they ran and sought refuge from other parts of Africa, Central and East Africa, especially in Tanganyika, that their running was as a result of Mufekani. But there are those who say we cannot run. Okay, they also ran because initially, where they built their states were not their initial lands, were not their original lands. But they ran and said, no, we cannot run further. We can't run further, and therefore, where we are staging here. We are going to defend ourselves, come what may. So, in the of defending themselves, they ended up using a number of ways, and then, unknowingly, they established states, or you call them kingdoms, or you call them societies. They reached places, reorganized themselves, and they said, enough is enough. And then they began building states, or what we call kingdoms. So that is the background of defensive states. It is as a result of nation building and Mofekane. So as some people were building nations, Mofekane was happening, and somewhere in other areas of South Africa, guys were defending themselves, were saying, no, we cannot allow to be swallowed up by the Zulu. We are going to stand and fight. And indeed they did that. So unknowingly, they built states. We are going to look at there are a number of them. I think there are 3 states, but I think what we have in the write-up, we have like 2 states. If you are looking at the notes that we are going to be discussing, and number 1, we're going to look at the Basuto, or what we call the Sotho state. These states are still existent even up to today. We have what we call Lesotho. You people have data. You can open up another tab and then you Google on a country called Lesotho. It is within the heart of South Africa. It is all the borders are surrounded by South Africa as a country. We have Lesotho, and then we also have a state called the Swazi, which is called Swaziland. Today, it was changed. It is called Eswatini. But of course, Eswatini is the local. It is the local language, which means Swaziland. King Mswati changed the name, I think, some 2-3 years back, and then called the country Eswatini. Now, those were the 2 states that were formed as a result of defensive methods, and then we call them the defensive states. Now, because the Basuto is not a place, or Sotho is not a place, it is simply a group of people called the Basuto. Okay, like how we can say in our the Banyankole, the Badanda, and what have you. So it is a group of people, and their country today is called Lesotho, the country of the Sotho people. So we are going to look at, first of all, the rise. I hope we have the rise of the Basuto nation. Remember, I think you are comfortable with the background of the defensive states, how it was established. Of course, the rise is as good as establishment. So these 2 words are not very much different. If you find one of them in some kind of paper or whatever, and then you're asking me either to discuss the rise or the establishment, you use the same literature to describe or to talk about one of those 2 aspects. So, how was the Sotho state established, or how to describe the rise of the Basuto? So, Basuto and Sotho, it is the same. You either call it the Basuto or you call it the Sotho state. In what we have in our write-up, of course, I have told you today, it is called the Sotho. And it also says it was also known as the Basuto Kingdom or the Mountainous Kingdom. We are going to discuss further as to why it was formed on mountainous ranges, simply because it was also a defensive tactic. Okay, but the defensive tactic, of course, if you are occupying a higher ground, the chances are very high that you have a defensive advantage over the person who is going to be maybe attacking you from downwards or from the hill downwards. So Moshesh was clever enough and then established his state on a mountainous area, such that whenever there could be any attack either from the Zulu or any other Nguni speaking kind of tribe who were always after expanding their societies, it was very easy for them either whatever they could have, they could use it effectively to defend their states. So it is also referred to as the Mountainous Kingdom, and the founders of the nation came from Central or West Africa, and the state belonged to the Bantu speakers or the Ntu speakers. So we are just simply, those are some of the background points you can try to about before you go into exactly what happened when these guys here were establishing the Sotho state. Of course, the Sotho people are Ntu speakers from the Nguni ethnicity, and then it was born during the period of Mufekane, as I have told you. That one should always feature if you are making a description of how it was established. It was as a result, it was a brainchild of Mufekane and the nation building. So that's why I have told you that those three aspects were happening concurrently. That as the Shaka was expanding the Zulu kingdom, Mofekane was at the same time happening, and then somewhere, somehow, in some other part, Moshesh was very much busy trying to defend whatever small kind of kingdom he had created, he had tried to come up with. So these three events were happening at the same time. So the result of the sort of state kingdom was none other than the episode of Mofekane. Then it is said the founder was Moshesh, and he was born 1786 to a man Mokachane, a minor chief among the Kwena. The Kwena was just a simple tribe. And then Moshesh was the son of that chief, the chief of that tribe. And then he was Moshesh himself, because among the tribes we also have clans. The clan specifically was Mapoteri. And then he was brought up by a famous sort of chief. So on, you can read through it and then try to understand. Now, that is the background of the Basuto. Of course, when talking about the Basuto state, we talk about Moshesh. He was the founder. Moshesh. This was the founder of the Basuto as a state. Of course, we talk about things like his clan. We talk about then talk about the tribe, and then we also talk about his personality. What was Moshesh like? Because as I told you, you cannot become a leader unless when you have some specific qualities. You have to be intelligent, you have to be shrewd, and then you have to be famous. Not famous as in this kind of fame of what you call celebrities, but famous because you have those good qualities of being a leader. Then you are known by people, and then you are accepted by people to be their leader. So he had all these qualities. That's why here we talk about things like Moshesh was intelligent, adventurous, patient, brave, and he was a determined young man. Those are some of the true descriptions of someone who is going to be a leader. After talking about his origin, clan, tribe, and his father, because he was somehow royal, because being a son of a chief means that Moshesh himself was amongst his people. He was royal, not royal, but royal. He was royal amongst his people. So even this is also another advantage. If you have royalty blood in you, you can easily be accepted by people and you can become their leader. So after describing his background briefly, remember that describing the origin, rise, establishment, and actually uh, some aspect of origin of what we call the Basuto nation. So that was Moshesh. He was born 1786. We have a lot of information about him because you can't talk about the Swazi, you can't talk about the Basuto unless when you are talking about Moshesh. Likewise, you can't talk about the Zulu kingdom, even today, even the past, unless when you talk about Shaka Zulu. Okay. So, if you are trying to trace the origin and establishment of the Zulu state, of course, many of the points are going to feature the person who was responsible for establishment of the Zulu state, and that was none other than Shaka. So Moshesh was that. He was intelligent, as I have said, but you have it in the write-up I have uploaded. Then, in another description, we say that during Mofekane, Moshesh became prominent as a notorious cattle raider. That is also very much important because of his skill in raiding cattle. That's why, first of all, he was able to build the nation. He was able to build the nation, number one, that he spotted the right area where he could establish the kingdom. And that was none other than the area that was mountainous, basically for defensive purposes. As I told you, you have a bigger advantage if you have if you are occupying a higher ground than your enemy, military wise. That's why when you go to different defensive techniques, they would always tell you. That's why snipers always get higher ground. You can't have a sniper who's going if you are a sniper and then you occupy a ground that is so down, then I don't think you're a very good one. So you get a higher ground, either building or either a hill, and then you take what you call a clean shot. One man, one bullet, like the Kalamajongs. So you occupy the higher ground. So he was, that's why we say he was intelligent. Much as these guys are not educated, but a few things they could, I don't know how they even got the intellect. They could simply think out a few things here and there, and then they come up with solutions. So the kingdom was occupied on mountainous ground, and then another thing that helped him establish what we call the Basuto, which we also talk about when we're discussing the establishment and rise of the Basuto, was the skill in cattle raiding. The skill in cattle raiding. There was no money then, but you are going to have a lot of money and then you buy. Of course, even when he had a few things to exchange, I think as a poor nation, as the Swazi people, they didn't have a lot of items they could use to exchange such that they could get money. The only way they had to get cattle, which was very much important for any economy then, was simply to raid the neighbors and then you capture cattle. And the more heads of cattle you had in your small state like the Basuto, the greater the advantage because it meant that you could exchange cattle and then you get guns. You could use cattle and you get medicine and you get other items you could use in the fighting. And how would you get cattle? Raid the neighbors and then you get as many cattle as you could. So, besides being a leader, intelligent leader, Moshesh was also a notorious cattle raider. And he did this to help boost his economy, the economy of the Basuto. And secondly, he did this such that he could be um, um, a wealthy kind of leader. Okay, because any leader you must be having a number of items, especially that item which describes someone to be rich at a given period of time. For example, today, something that can describe someone to be rich, they are no longer cattle. Okay, cattle can be part of it, but now today, if you're going to be, if we are going to say that that guy is loaded, it is in terms of items like, I think to be specific, arcades. Okay, today the number of arcades one has, then it means that guy is loaded. Then from arcades, basically arcades and maybe today in Uganda, and then land. If you have lots of land and maybe you have built a number of commercial buildings, which we call arcades today, then you can say you are rich. That's why we talk about people like Chilumira, we talk about people like Gasita Antake, like Sudidi, because they have many arcades all over Uganda. You come to Kampala, they have many. You go to Jinja, they have many. So those are the tycoons we have in Uganda. So simply because they have the items we can use to describe someone who is rich today. Now then, in the time of establishment of the kingdom of the Basuto, the item that was used to describe someone to be wealthy or rich was none other than cattle. So when Mushesh identified the cattle as a decorative item, he developed a skill in raiding and capturing cattle. And this helped him to build the economy of his kingdom. And because of that, there is another point here which says the raided cattle became the basis of the social economy. Raiding cattle, and then the raided cattle formed the basis of the economy. And if your economy has that item which can be used to describe that the economy is a loaded economy, then that economy is a very strong one. Okay. So it formed the basis of the economy of the social, and therefore it became somehow a stable economy, not a very strong economy, but a stable economy. I hope you differentiate between what we call stability and strength. You can be weak but stable. Okay, you can be weak as compared with other things around, but you're stable. Or you can be even strong but unstable. But I think I prefer the former. You rather be somehow weak, but when you are very, very stable. So he had a stable economy, and then you are still looking at his skill of raiding cattle. Here they say he then shaved his cattle to distinguish them from others. Okay. So because of the skill, the many cattle that he could get, he could shave them. I don't know which part he used to shave. I can't tell you that now. But the description we have in here that he shaved the cattle purposely to differentiate whatever he had got in terms of the raiding from other heads of cattle, and therefore from that he got the name Moshesh, meaning the shaver of cattle. So the name Moshesh in the Basuto language means the shaver of cattle. So given the fact that he was given that name, it means that he had really got a lot. His skill had highly developed so much when it comes to cattle raiding and shaving, probably. So we say here by 1815, Moshe started creating the social state. Okay. No, before that, before Mofekane, there was no state called the Soso. That's a very important point, as we have been discussing. I have told you that Mofekane, before I told you that Mofekane was disastrous. All the effects of Mofekane were, of course, even the word Mofekane, as we had discussed, it is the word which means suffering. It's the word which means crying, misery, name anything that is causing a lot of frustration to people. That's what Mofekane means. Okay? But again, much as it is having that description, it had an indirect, okay, an indirect but positive effect. That as Shaka was causing suffering to people, he didn't know that he was also helping others to think out of the box and then create themselves a state. So that's why we say here that before Mofekane, you didn't have anything called the social. But there existed independent clans, and small chiefdoms. Where we have the Soto today, what was there before Mofekane, it wasn't a state. They were simply minor clans of 100 people, 200 people, and small chiefdoms. That's what really existed. And when we talk about small chiefdoms and clans, that has never given any description of what we call a state. So that was there today. That's why we discussed initially and said that the result of defensive states was, of Mofekane positively was none other than the creation of defensive states. So we say thumbs up for Mofekane, and then we had what we call the Swazi, the Soto Kingdom. So he began creating the state. That is 19th century, 1815. Those years are very recent. Yes, 1815 is very recent. It's just yesterday, because we sometimes look at history which has thousands, millions and millions of years. Those are going to become archaeologists and another branch of history. Of course, we talk about 19th century, it is just yesterday. So, at first, there are names in a write-up, but you simply have to get used to them and like them, because if you're going to make a write-up about things like the Swazi, you have to know, first of all, you have to know Moshesh, you have to know the Soto, and then you have to know such names as Bothabothe. Okay, so he says that at first his kingdom was put at that place called Bothabothe, but he transferred his kingdom to another area called the Thababosiu. If you are following the write-up we have there, I know you are seeing these names, or you are seeing these are places. Of course, they are not people. Like Mushesh. Mushesh is a person. Some people here can get confused and then begin saying Mushesh as being a place in South Africa. No, Mushesh is just the founder, and the founder cannot be a place. The founder has to be an individual. And these ones, first of all, he located his kingdom at Buthabuthe, and then because of the attacks from the Torokwa, we have made a mention of the Torokwa. I think there were also some other family, and Torokwa, I think this is the spelling. It was a tribe also in South Africa, but I think there were also another problematic tribe. So they frequented attacks on Moshesh's people, and this forced Moshesh to shift from Bothabothe to Thaba Bosiu, and that's where he established what we call the Basuto state. Thaba Bosiu is none other than Hill of Might, which was a good defensive place. I told you these guys were not educated, but simply they were born leaders. And the intellect they had was basically natural and God given, to the extent that they could easily identify which places were suitable in terms of defense, in terms of maintenance of their kingdoms. So he transferred from Buthabuthe because of the Toroko attacks, and then took his state or his society to Thababusiyu, and that is none other than the Hill of Might, for defensive reasons. He welcomed refugees. Another point that we can try to look at in terms of establishing his kingdom. Of course, we talked about being established on the hills. That helped him so much. Established it on the hills. Moshesh as a person was intelligent, as intelligent leader, and then Moshesh as a person boosted the economy. I know you can't be able to see these ones. Boosted the economy of by raiding cattle. And then another important aspect that helped him really to build the kingdom was was the fact that he welcomed refugees. I hope you can see at that point. He welcomed refugees in his kingdom. Of course, if you have many people coming to your kingdom, small as it was, of course, even these ones were running away from the effects of Mufekani. Seriously running away. And as they were running away, he could just welcome them. Whoever was fleeing, whether you were a Zulu or you were a Mofefa or whatever, as long as you wanted to seek some kind of refuge, he welcomed the refugees. The implication is that, and of course, those who were running away could not run away as individuals. Of course, they were seeking refuge in numbers with their leaders, in numbers with their leaders. Maybe they were clans, maybe they were tribes, okay? But all of those were welcomed into his kingdom, and therefore this helped him to boost the population of the kingdom, and therefore to get the support of many people, but from different tribes and from different walks of life. So that's why we say here, he welcomed refugees into his state who were running away from Ufekane and gave them land for settlement. And then he allowed refugees to retain their chiefs. Now, whenever you could get these refugees, it was a very big group of refugees that had come to his state, maybe in the form of a clan, then he did not kill their leaders. He allowed them to retain their leaders. But of course, he cautioned the leaders that much as they were the leaders of their small groups of people, he was the supreme leader. So they accepted, and then in that way, he was building some kind of relationship. He also used the diplomacy and marriage to create unity in his state. This has been used for so many years. Marriage alliances have helped different states to survive and kingdoms to survive, because there is no way if there is no way one kingdom could attack the other if you have that kind of marriage alliance. A prince gets to marry a princess from another tribe, so he used that. He could marry from the refugees, especially. He could marry daughters of the chiefs of the refugees, and then in that way created a bond between himself and those people who were coming to seek refuge from his state. Then he used the state he created survived up to 1870. Remember, we said he created it in 1815. Okay, for him, who was born 1756. That's the year in which he was born. Then a state created in 1815, and then it survived up to 1870 when he began getting challenges, because this the aspect of colonialism and what have you had begun by those years. Up to 1870 when he died. So born this year, he died this year. Of course, when you calculate the difference between 1870 and 1756, those are so many years. So he died of old age. And then the state continued to exist beyond this period until when the British attacked and occupied it later. Of course, it went beyond this, but later on the British took it over as a protectorate. But that wasn't bad, wasn't so bad, because of the protection from the British. That's why the state survived the greedy Boers, because they were still in South Africa. But now the later leaders got some kind of working arrangement with the British, and then they became a protectorate. Like how Uganda was made a protectorate, I think, in 1898, if I haven't forgotten. So we became a British protectorate. So likewise, even Lesotho, as a state, they became a British protectorate, and therefore, this meant that they had got immunity from any other foreign country that really wanted to occupy them, especially the Boers, because the key players in South Africa were the British and the Boers. So The declaration of the Soto state as a British protectorate meant that they had got protection from the Boers, because the British now had mandated that they were supposed to protect the Soto state. Now, organization of the Soto state, um, as I have told you, organization is simply political, social, and economic. Those ones, you know them. Like how we look at organization of any other kingdoms, be it in East Africa or South Africa. But I wanted us to look at the preamble here. Was founded 1815, between 1815 and 1824 by Moshesh. And this was the period of Mufekane. Today it is the Lesotho. I don't know if you have found out something about Lesotho as a country. You can even think of visiting Lesotho, members. Those who have some money, you can go and visit Lesotho. And this is what is happening. If you don't have the money, so you can't say I'm going to visit it. For those who can, yes, you can get your dollars. Go spend a weekend, a month, enjoying the scenery, the beautiful mountains in Lesotho. So you Google and find out who the president. Actually, they don't have I think they have a president. Find out who the president is and what are the beautiful things to see there. Maybe one day, one time, you try to find some reason that is taking you there. So the kingdom was organized politically, socially. So what we have, there are many things that are talking about political organization and then social and then economic. As I have told you, you read it them and understand. Members, you're not going to be writing these notes. Don't write the notes. With as a history department that you will be teacher are the Basuto and the Basotho the same or different? Okay, I'm getting a question here. It is just a dialect. Okay. Someone is asking, we have Basuto and then Basotho. These, first of all, they are the same. It is just the same. But why are the writings different? It depends on who's pronouncing the word. Okay? But it implies that most pronunciations that are made by people are Basuto and Basotho. Those are the two most important pronunciations that are recognized in books that in history books that are writing about the Basotho or the Basotho. That if you write Basuto, you are right. If you write the Basotho, you are right. There, it is just the same. It's like when we have Baganda, okay, and then others would say Waganda, okay. It is simple. Who's saying most of people from the West, they don't have B, they will simply say Waganda. But when you come here in our own midst, first we shall say Baganda. Okay, I had a name, one of the great, actually the founder of Egypt. The founder of Egypt was called Muhammad Ali. Those who are going to be embracing and studying more about history, let me just give you this hint. The founder of modern day Egypt. Okay, because Egypt has been there for so many years, even the times of the Pharaoh. But when you talk about the founder of modern day Egypt, he was called Muhammad Ali. But when you go to the West, for them they can't pronounce the word Muhammad. In their books, in most of their books they have written, they have what we call Mehmet Ali. They call him Mehmet Ali. So if you find the name Mehmet Ali, you are correct in any book, and you find the name Muhammad Ali, talking about the founder of present-day Egypt, you are also correct. So, Basuto and Basotho, it is the same. That's it. There's no difference between those. Yeah, it is. This is from, I think, Patrick Isota. I think I have answered you. It is just the same word. It's simply all about pronunciation of the word of the word. Okay. Now I was saying that please don't copy these notes. Don't copy the notes. Just simply you are going to download the notes and then you photocopy. Is it photocopy? You print them. Because when you come back, we are not going to be wasting time in writing the notes because we shall be having pretty limited time. We have gone through the notes as we have discussed. Those who are not able to subscribe to these channels here that we are using, the e-learning channels, they are unfortunate. I don't know, but it's their problem. They will find ways out. As a solid department, we shall be you just print the notes and have your copies. When you come back here, we are simply going to be doing a lot of tests and they are discussing the nitty gritty, but we are deeming it covered in terms of copying notes and in terms of explanation. So we are not going to be looking at a situation whereby we're going to go, sir, can I copy these notes? Which I don't have them. We shall be asking for, do you have the printed kind of write-up we have uploaded? If you have it, then you are as good as having the required note. That is a Kalango Zao. Then back to what we have been discussing. Political organization members, you have the notes, but I've given you the background. When talk about establishment, rise, origin, it is also the background of this defensive state that is called the Basuto or that is called the Sotho state. Now, when we talk about something as a state or something called a kingdom, I want you to get this. We have what we call states or kingdoms. And then we have what we call stateless. Stateless, or we call them chiefdoms. These are different and they all existed in Africa. That is because we're discussing pre-colonial Africa. We're not discussing Africa today, not even colonial Africa. Okay, because we gave you the history that we are giving you. We are now when we discuss about these states here, we are discussing these states as pre-colonial states. How they existed before the coming of the white man. That's what we are discussing. And then some other kind of information we sometimes discuss, like resistances. That information is a colonial history. And then sometimes I don't think we have any kind of of, of, of a situation where you're supposed to be covering post-colonial history. No. So these states here, they are pre-colonial, and we have them in two aspects. States, whenever we say the Basuto state, it simply implies that this was a kingdom. This was a kingdom. And one of the major features of any state or of any kingdom, when you begin describing the political organization of that kingdom, is none other than the fact that the kingdoms always had kings at the top. That's why we write up here. Actually, we are beginning with the fact that it was a centralized kingdom. These ones are called stateless and they're also called decentralized. And you forgotten that. These ones are called states, kingdoms, and centralized. So, it was a centralized kingdom. And of course, being a kingdom, it meant that it had a king and a powerful political system. All the kingdoms that we had, or the kingdoms that we are created in Africa, you talk about West Africa, like the kingdom of. I wanted to give an example of any kingdom in West Africa that was powerful, like the Asante, okay, like the Asante in Ghana. All those were great kingdoms, like Uganda here, like you talk about the Zulu. All of these kingdoms had what we call robust political systems. The king at the top, with the help of the chiefs and then with the help of military advisors and maybe council of elders, but all of them reporting to the king. Um, then, I'm working with Mr. Silvamba here, and he's giving me some information here. Okay. Uh, this one is personal. I want to read it to you. It is my information. So, Mr. Silvamba, I have got it clearly. And organization, then, first of all, centralize the kingdom. Yes, it was. Secondly, the institution was an institution of kingship, which was hereditary. When the king dies, the son takes over. When the son dies, that is purely the true cut of any kingdom or any state. Then the kingdom had a lot of powers, but used them sparingly. For the Basuto, he had a lot of powers, but he didn't abuse his powers like how Shaka used to do in the Zulu kingdom. Of course, Shaka was everything. He didn't have any council of elders. He simply had his spies and what have you, and his word was final. Mhm. He could make you just die with just. He could simply order for your death with a nod of his head, without even talking. They simply signal him, then he would say, and then you die, as simple as that. And when he would just turn his head 2 times like this, then you would be spared. So that's how powerful he was. So very brutal and very dictatorial. So, but the king of the Basuto used his power. He had lots of power at his disposal, but used the power sparingly. He didn't. When we talk about sparingly, it means that he was tolerant to the people he was leading. Tolerant in the way that he could give them a chance. He could listen to them if they had complaints. He could listen to them if they had wronged the state. He would give them a fair trial. So that's what we call the use of power sparingly. That's why here, i.e., he acted as the civil, religious, and the judicial leader of his people. But of course, much as he had all those portfolios, he could try to give some kind of room to listen to the people. The nation was made up of many semi-independent chiefdoms that were brought under one central authority of Moshesh, because I had hinted earlier that Moshesh welcomed refugees. And these refugees didn't come just like Kawisa Yusuf, I have come as a refugee here. No. There were simply groups of people that had been oppressed by Mufekane, and then a chief would organize his people, and then they move away. They migrate and then go and settle in the Basuto state. So people welcomed them. Now, that's why we say that the kingdom of the Sotho was made up of different chiefdoms. That much as you had the Basuto, but under them there were different chiefdoms. And therefore, these chiefdoms here had their respective leaders, but these leaders were directly responsible to the king of the Basuto, and that was none other than Moshesh. Because we say that Moshesh means the cattle shaver, because the skill he had in raiding cattle. Then Moshesh left the chiefs to rule their people as long as they respected him. That's what I have just said. Being responsible to the king. And being responsible to the king means that you have to obey the orders, you have to obey the person of the king. And if you disobeyed, then of course that would be trouble. So that's what happened. And when we are discussing the political organization, that should not miss that the chiefdom, yes, because it was simply created. It wasn't there before Mufekane, as we said, it wasn't there. It was created. But now, what was the composition? The composition was simply different chiefdoms. And these chiefdoms were led by leaders who were responsible to Moshesh, the founder and the king of the Basuto. So, analysis of, for example, of the Basuto here is going to be very different from the analysis of the Zulu kingdom. Much as they are kingdoms, but they are having different underlying factors in terms of their organization. Some of you simply say, that one is very easy. As long as they give you organization, you can even use Uganda organization and then answer this. No, you will be very wrong. You simply have to make an understanding what really featured among the Basuto, what featured among the Zulu and what featured among the Baganda. There are respective underlying differences in terms of organization of either basically political. When you begin, for example, talking about the Zulu kingdom, political organization, it is purely going to be an analysis of the fact that Zulu was a militaristic kingdom. It was headed by the king helped by the Induna, and these were military Indunas. And then the Zulu kingdom was made up of regiments. So people and organization of people in the Zulu kingdom was on the fact that they were scattered in regiments. These were military camps. Now, if you begin analyzing the Basuto as being organized in terms of regiments, then that's where you begin getting everything wrong. So, as I say that these things are different, you have to take in note of what are the underlying features that are making these societies very different. Of course, if you know that this was a defensive society, and the fact that he welcomed refugees, it has to make sense in your mind that these refugees here, they came much as they were welcomed, but they had their own leaders. Which leaders Moshe maintained to lead the people, but of course they had to be reporting back to him as the founder. So that was different. And this never happened in the Zulu kingdom. So you have to take a note of that, and then you see the underlying features that are making respective kingdoms very much distinct from one another. Then the chiefdom leaders enjoyed some freedom and authority over their people because we said that he had a lot of powers, but he used the powers sparingly. So much as he was the supreme judge, supreme religious leader, name it, but the leaders of these refugees and chiefdoms here, they also had authority over the people they were leading on behalf of Moshe. Example, a few cases, they could finish them. They could preside over simple ceremonies like a marriage within their own people. Now, that didn't have any problem, okay? Unless when anything was a concern of the entire state and then it had to be addressed by Moshe himself. So they enjoyed some freedom and authority. The chiefdom leaders, Moshe left the chiefs to rule their people as long as they respected him. The conquered people gave gifts and paid tribute to Moshe. All of these were features of the political organization of the kingdom. Encouraged refugees again to settle in Lesotho. He put a place of spy network of his family. Now he copied this from the Zulu. He also he used a spy network, and the spies were from his family members. Okay, to get information from the conquered societies. That one was copied from the Zulu, of course. Then the nation had no standing army, but 8 regiments provided security and could be called upon any time. Moshe used diplomacy other than violence to maintain peace. That was very important. The Zulu were using force. Moshe was using diplomacy. The area served as capitals of kingdom like Busabuse and later Thababusiyu, all those which were, of course, those who are doing geography, you know that you can have, you call them escarpments in geography. I don't know. Is it an escarpment? I don't know. It is a flat topped highland. I don't know how it is called. I think it's an escarpment. Yeah. So on top of a hill, you can find a very big area which is flat. But again, it is on a hill, and you have to move in rounds and rounds and rounds until when you reach that area. So you can go to Kapchula, you can find these places. Oh, if you are from Kapchula, you know what I'm talking about. Of course, you have everything here in Uganda. You go to Kapchula, you'll find these places. That's where these guys here, the Chipte guys, are training from. Those areas are specific. They are flat, but their altitude is very, very, very high. So he established those settlements on hilltops, but of course which were flat. Then another aspect here, conquered chiefs were always consulted before any major political decision was made. I had mentioned that earlier. Used the powers sparingly. They could not simply decide. There existed two parliaments in the sort of state, that is the inner council and the pitso. Pitso is, you can see the word there. He was very powerful, but he was democratic. His kind of leadership is that kind of leadership that the Chinese are using. Those who are interested, you can go and look at the Chinese, how they are doing their stuff. and maybe even I don't know, maybe even the Germans. I don't know, but the Chinese, that's how they do it. They never elect a president, but of course, the party which has more members of the parliament chooses the president. I think that's how it is even done in Israel. So, council to council is the inner council and what have you. So you can read the rest and then you try to make sense out of it. Then economic organization, of course, it was best mixed economy, agriculture and cattle keeping. Then, of course, they grew crops. That one is very easy. Then Mashesh created unity, and I'm trying to trace where I can. Social organization is here. The social nation had a mixture of cultures since it had been formed by gathering refugees of Mofekane. That is outstanding, very much outstanding. They never had a single culture like how it is in some societies or kingdoms, but they had a mixture of cultures because remember, for him, he was welcoming anyone who was coming around South Africa. And as long as your problem had been Mofekane, he could come and settle in his kingdom. So everyone came with his, or they came with their own cultures, and therefore it was a melting pot of cultures that was in Basotho or was in the Southern Kingdom. However, the absorbed people adopted the Sotho culture. The clan was the biggest unit, so on and so forth. Then you talk about, I don't know how much I'm left with. As we are talking about the social, we said the clan was the biggest. Then the family was the smallest unit. And then Moshesh created unity amongst his people. And how did he do this? I'm just reading through what you have there. If you have downloaded it anyway. Among this, and it was headed by a man, that's the family which created through marriage alliances and had over 100 women from different clans. Okay. So of course I had hinted how you can create how you can forge unity as a leader. You have to create what you call marriage alliances. Now, it wasn't like his people uh, it wasn't like his sons and daughters were marrying, but it was himself who was marrying from all these tribes that had come in as refugees in his kingdom. He made sure first thing that he had to do was to get a wife from the refugees that had come. Meaning that as long as he had one of your daughters, there was no way you are going to fight against him. It meant that now you're one person, you are united. The sort we are encouraged to practice exogamous marriages, marriage out of their clans, so as to enhance unity. Of course, I think for us here in Uganda, you can't marry within your clan. That is a taboo. Even when you don't know someone, as long as you hear the name. For example, I can't be Kawesa, and then I marry someone who is called Nachimuri or Nakawesa. Even when I'm seeing you for the first time, it is a taboo. It means that we are from the same clan, of course. Okay. But I think for the Soto, it was allowed. They could marry from within clans. But what was encouraged that they could marry from other clans. And the purpose of that was none other than enhancing unity. Polygamy was common, a practice though monogamy also existed. Of course, in African setting, you can not dwell with the polygamy. They practiced initiation ceremonies and so on and so forth. So they also believe that the high god was called Modimo, who created the world and determined its destiny. Then they worshipped ancestral spirits. Of course, this happens with any. Talk about Africa, then we talk about not evil spirits, ancestral spirits. You believe in the souls of those who are dead. Give them much respect. You make sacrifices to them in return to be given blessings. That's how the Africans believe. I don't know how factual their belief is, but that's how it is in most of African societies. Even up to today, I think that aspect is still there, much as we have a lot of influence of different religions. Okay, but still the beliefs are are still existent. So they also believed in ancestral spirits, but they had a knowledge of the supreme God. As you call him Ruhanga, as you call him Chibumba, if you were a Sogi, you called him Modimo. That is the name which was given to that supreme God. And he was supreme in the sense that he had created the world and the heavens. And most importantly, they believed he was the one who could determine someone's destiny. Some people even say that if you're a thief, that is your destiny. You are very wrong. You choose that one. You choose to be a thief. It can never be a destiny. So destiny can be in something that you cannot have control over. If you can't control anything, maybe you were born lame. It is a destiny. You cannot do anything about that. If you were born with the fact that you cannot understand things taught in a class, that is a destiny. Okay, you can't decide on whether you can change it. You can't say today I'm changing from not understanding to understanding mathematics. So you accept the destiny and then you look for other things, and then you find out how you can help yourself. Either you can be a very good bricklayer or anything else. So they called him Modimo and he determined destiny. The king was the chief priest and religious leader of his people. And every family was protected by spirits of its ancestors. I didn't call them evil spirits, but spirits. And of course, talk about spirits of the ancestors. Of course, any ancestral spirit is going to wish you good things, and it will defend you. That is for the sake of those who believe in them. They also celebrated the important stages of life: birth, puberty, adolescence, marriage, and death. So that is briefly the organization of the Super Kingdom. Remember, stuff is clear. I don't have any spelling mistakes in the write-up I have uploaded. And I think I'm not having Chinese language. Everything is in purely simple English. So for those who are seeing Chinese, it's the problem with your head probably. If you are seeing Chinese, but this is purely English, which I have tried to give. I've given you a preamble about the organization. So you try to read through the write-up, and I know it will make sense. So I'm done with the organization of the Soto Kingdom, and I think I'm left with like 10 minutes. And Mr. Suman here had asked me to leave some 10 minutes. If you have any question, you can send it. If you have any question, you can send it. Like how one sent that question asking whether the Basuto and the Basotho is the same. We received that question and we answered the person appropriately. So now the few minutes that are left is here I can answer some of those questions. Of course you type. I know if you can open the system, you can also type. We don't have that. I think we don't have that aspect whereby you can simply talk and then. Is it there? Okay, someone is saying that that is good. You can, if you can't type, please you talk. You can get the voice this side. I also get a chance to hear your voices. Maybe some of you cannot talk even because of the long lockdown. Maybe now even your English has become very, very much rusty. That you can't construct 3 sentences which are correct. So you can talk and then you can answer. Otherwise, what we have here, Mashesha's contribution to Basuto land. After discussing the rise and establishment of the kingdom, of course, they are the origins of the kingdom, is the rise of the Basuto state, and it is the establishment. One of the 3 that is set in any question, you simply use the literature we have discussed first. So we are done with that. Then we also discussed the political, social, and economic organization of the Basuto Kingdom. Now, what comes next here is his contribution. Of course, as the founder, he had immense contribution towards the Basuto land. I said today it is called Lesotho. Officially, it is called Lesotho. But when you go in the country, you will find people calling themselves the Basuto, or you will find people calling themselves people of the Basuto land. Like how I told you that you also have another country within South Africa, Lesotho and Swaziland, and I think even Botswana. No, not Botswana, it's not South Africa. But Lesotho and Swaziland, they are within South Africa. And all these were formed as a result of Mafekani. And that's why you call them defensive states. Now his contribution, of course, to give the background. It is believed that Moshesh was born in 1786 to Mokachane. Mokachane, that was we say that he was a chief of a small chiefdom. And that's why I say that he had some royal blood in him. Of course, if you are born a royal, chances are very high that you become a leader. But if you are born a peasant, you have to struggle so much and for so long without even losing the hope. And then you impose yourself on people. But it's very easy if you are born a loyal. So a minor chief among the Kwena, Kwena was a tribe. He's said to have belonged to Makoteli clan of the Kwena. And then his father was Makochane. Then during his days, Moshesh became prominent. So you first of all give the background and then in the different points, and then you go ahead to give really what he did for his kingdom. And then he was able to bring people of different origins. That is contribution number one. And with that kind of bringing people together, he was able to first of all boost the population of the Soto state. And then, if you have a very good population, then of course you are looking at a state that can defend itself because it has people. A state that can sustain itself. Because if you're talking about any country with the resources, the first resource is the human resource. That's why we labor so hard. We even use these platforms to teach you people because we think if we don't do this, we are risking the chance of you people getting spoiled and then wasting the next generation that is going to take on our country. So we keep you occupied such that you keep focused, that you have some time to live after when some of us are gone as responsible citizens. So human resources is important. So it meant that when he welcomed refugees, it meant that he was boosting population, and therefore he was having a lot of enrichment in terms of human resources. That is contribution number one. He was able to bring people of different origins, backgrounds together. That he was able to create unity. He also allowed them to maintain their rulers as long as they remained loyal to him. That was also great. Why? Because only that helped him to maintain peace in his kingdom. If you give them some freedom, then it means that you're going to have some kind of good working relationship with these other chiefs. He laid the foundation for the new powerful Basuto nation. Of course, as the founder, that which goes to him. And even up to today, what he created is still evident in a country called Lesotho. Maybe if it wasn't for his kind of contribution today, you wouldn't be having that country. But it's going to be there and maybe many, many years to come. But his contribution is that he headed the Basuto nation during the period of imperialism. Okay, because I've told you that by the time he was quitting his state, we had the Boers and we had the British already in South Africa. But he was able to maintain that kind of working relation. He maintained his kingdom as well as guarding it against imperialism. So, as a leader, he effectively did that. Promoted a nation with one language and one culture, much as there were people from different backgrounds, but whenever you could be incorporated And then you had to take on social language and then social culture. And that's why, because of those strong kind of cultures and beliefs and norms, that's why even a country called Lesotho still today exists, because they are simply a people who speak one language, who have a common culture, a common destiny, and name it. So if you have that, then chances are very high that you are going to become a kingdom or a country. Mrs. Swan, am I having any questions? So I think I'm having like a 3 or 2 minutes that are left, and I'm asking you. You read through his contributions, and then when we meet next time, God willing, we shall start with the problems faced by Mashesh between 1815, because that is the period when he created his kingdom, and 1868 or 1870. So we shall look at the problems first, and then maybe how he was able to solve the problems. And then we look at his relationship with the Europeans after 1830. Then we look at the War of the Guns, that was resistance, and then I don't think we shall even finish those in just one lesson. But of course, we shall continue with the write-up. Please download the notes and try to look at them and read through them. Otherwise, I wish you.
Before you go,
Before I go away, there's a question here. Isota says, Google says that his father was chief of minor clan of the Basuto. That's what we have said, Isota. The tribe was Kwena. His father was a chief of a clan, but that clan was under the Kwena tribe. I hope you understand the difference between a clan and a tribe. Okay. For example, in Uganda here we have clan leaders. They call them Abataka. And they're given titles. For example, the clan leader of my clan, which is a Fumbe clan, he has a title called Omutaka Walusimbi. He's called Omutaka Walusimbi. And these titles are hereditary. Omutaka Walusimbi, when he dies, his son becomes the clan leader. Even when the son is 4 years, he becomes Omutaka because he's the leader of that clan. So this is equated to a chief. If you are a Mutaka or clan leader, you are a chief. You are the chief of that clan. You are the chief of the Fumbe clan, and you are given a title of Walusimbi. And this clan is under what we call Buganda Kingdom or Buganda tribe. Isota, what Google is saying is what we have discussed. His father was a leader of a minor clan, but that clan was under what we call the Kwena tribe. Okay, but of course, even those tribes, the Kwena among others, they transformed into what we call the Sotho people. So, thank you for going to the Google and searching a few things and there. But I told you to search about Lesotho as a country. Find out more about Lesotho as a country, the capital city, the food that these guys here eat, how they do some of their ceremonies even today. What are the basics that there are in their cultures and what have you, and what you are supposed to be seeing around when you go to Lesotho. I said you guys are going to go there for tourism, unless when you don't believe in yourselves and you don't have money. So I wish you a very good day. Unless when I have another question here, answer no question. Those who have attended, thank